Hello and welcome to Canvas the Niger-Delta Roundtable, where I discuss the future of this region blessed with hydrocarbon resources. Every week, we give time to reflect on topics relevant to the development of the Niger-Delta and the people. This week is no different. I'm here to focus once again on how to take this region to a more promising future. Be reminded the program is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC, RIE, the Total Energies Active Joint Venture, Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, headquartered in Port Harcourt. Thank you for joining. I'm Adedayo Shakim. Our topic today is what children need. Now, in honor of Children's Day, we're diving into a topic that touches every home, every school, and every heart. What children need. Children are more than just the future, they are the present. While we often celebrate them with gifts and games, today we're asking a deeper question. What the children truly need to grow, thrive, and to feel safe and loved, from basic necessities like food and shelter to emotional support, education, and the freedom to dream. Now, this episode is a heartfelt look at the building blocks of a happy childhood. We'll be speaking to a parent, an educator, um, and he'll be sharing experiences and deep-rooted knowledge garnered from over the years on today's discussion. So whether you're a parent, a teacher, a policymaker, or simply someone who cares, stay with us as we explore how we can all do better for the children in our lives and the ones we're yet to meet. Again, our topic on this episode of Canvas is what children need, and my guest is Dr. Soye Asawo. Dr. Soye Asawo is an associate professor of organizational leadership and behavioral research, the head of departments, business administration department, faculty of administration and management at the River State University here in Port Harcourt. Dr. Soye Asawo, hello, welcome to Canvas, the Niger-Delta Toronto.
Hello, Dio. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Great to have you. Um, you featured on Canvas before, long ago, when it was before it became a podcast. But I have no doubt that this will be an equally, maybe even more interesting conversation. I have no doubt about that. Even though I perceive that the nature of the discussions we had then and this are somewhat very different.
Very
Yes. I think at that time we may have discussed more something along the lines of business realm
The
or
last time we discussed something around education.
education. Okay. All right. Oh, of course. Wow. You want to educate, huh? But I must ask, before we get into the nitty gritty of this conversation as to what children need, in your estimation, I know what I know, what I'd like to ask you nonetheless. In your estimation, what qualifies you to sit over there across from me and take the position that you are taking now on this conversation?
Okay, first, as an educationist, I am a trainer of children. And at a personal level, I've been involved with training children, being part of their development. In the university where I work, we receive children from the secondary level of education and we try to build them up to become adults who can own their own anywhere, hold their own anywhere. So I've been involved with training children. Um, at the personal level, I said I run an institute where one of our core focus is to provide platforms for children. So every year we hold a program we call the Children Book Reading Sessions. And in those sessions, we call some professionals who come to train children on how to read, which is a very important way of tooling these kids to be able to do well educationally. So in different fora at the religious level, I'm involved with children ministries. Uh, so yeah, I think, interestingly, I'm a parent with over about 20 years experience. And I've had to raise children, both biological children, foster children. And I think I've done fairly well in
You're absolutely qualified there. But I already knew that anyway. Now, this episode will air the week of Children's Day, I believe, in Nigeria. It's May 27th. Interestingly, I did some research while I was preparing for this recording. I discovered that Children's Day is marked on different days all over the world. And Nigeria is the only one that has the May 27th date. Found that quite remarkable, really. However, every day offers us an opportunity to reflect on what children need. And I'm sure as a parent, um, every single day you are forced to think along those lines. What do they need today? There are new challenge every day presents a new challenge or slightly different from what it was yesterday. So that's as a parent you're constantly dealing with that. So it's not a special day or special occasion thing for you or any other parent for that matter to think or ponder what your children need. However, commemorations of this nature I perceive give us an opportunity to aggregate ideas and think collectively, if you will. So that said, when you think what children need or what children truly need, what comes to your mind first?
First, we need to distinguish between what children want and what children need. And if we give thought to that to help us have a meaningful conversation, children want biscuits, they want toys, and the list is endless. But when we transit to the conversation of what children need, then it goes beyond the children. It's now a well thought out plan for the total well being of the child and to guarantee a successful progress in life to what society will say this indeed is a successful person. So, what children need will then boil down to what persons have thought through and been able to chart the course for that development of the child to become someone useful in society. So children need platforms, and platforms are carefully and thoughtfully created. Children need education. Children need to have their views sharpened in a way that they can understand themselves and to know what direction um, their lives should go. So, because children are very tender, and because they are very tender, they don't have the capacity to determine for themselves the course of their lives. So, someone has to guide them. So, children need guidance. And it takes a parent that is very careful to understand what a child truly needs. We have had a lot of struggle here because in our climate, because it's assumed that every child needs a certain level of education. And we believe so because we've always had the impression that numeracy and literacy is a path to success in life. But recently, research has shown that beyond cognitive intelligence, we have several other intelligences, 9 indeed. You talk about musical intelligence, talk about kinetic bodily intelligence, talk about naturalistic intelligence, you talk about interpersonal intelligence, talk about intrapersonal intelligence. All of these can be developed. So you can see a child who has a flair for athletics, and you're forcing that child to a conventional school. where nothing is done about that is ability in athletics, you're wasting that child. You're not providing the right platform. You have misinterpreted what that child needs. Okay. You see a child who ordinarily should go into music because from childhood, you could see in the life of that child, it's all about music. Okay. So you are now channeling all the energies to giving that child a different kind of education rather than what will be most beneficial to that child. So we need to pay attention more to identifying kids early and being able to channel them in the path. That's why I said it's different from what a child wants. If you ask a child what you want today, the list is endless. But ultimately, what the child wants does not guarantee a successful life. What the child needs guarantees a successful life. And it takes careful and thoughtful consideration to be able to identify what a child truly needs. It's not an omnibus, it's not something that it's peculiar to the child. What a child needs is peculiar to the child. It may be different from one child to the other, even of the same parents. And that's why this conversation is very, very important. But generally speaking, children need access to the right information. Children need accommodation. We need to accommodate their competencies, their flares. We need to accommodate their thoughts, no matter how tender they may be. Children need protection. And we will continue to reel out the list of what children need.
Um, what you don't need, not an omnibus, as you said. However, are there differences generationally when you talk about childhood? For example, what about childhood? What the ideal childhood is now? Is it different from what it was, say, when you were a child or thereabouts, or even after that?
A world of difference. A world of difference. I think we are losing part of who we were in our child rearing practices. Pardon me to go scholarly a bit. Hofstede did a study and categorized us, a lot of African nations, as collectivistic, whereas the Western nations, a number of them are classified as individualistic. Now, individualistic societies raise children as individuals. So they provide gadgets, they provide the educational systems are fashioned in a way that those kids are raised as individuals. So a child is independent right from the tender age, has his own cutleries, his own room to live in. And when the child is 18, he's leaving the home, literally speaking. But here, we are collectivistic. When a child is born, the entire family comes visiting. One child, one parent, one uncle, one auntie, one grandma will carry the child and all of that, And the child grows in the family as a member of the family. I can't remember having my cutlery separate from my siblings. We eat together, we play together, we sleep together on the same bed. And we play on the streets, rolling tires. That was life growing then. But that has changed. We're now moving towards a technologically driven lifestyle. So our children today spend a lot of time on their computers, on their phones. So social interaction is limited today. That's a whole lot of difference from what it used to be. I could tell the names of all those living on my street, but I doubt if the children today will be able to do that because we came out and played with each other. So life was community-like then. But life is becoming more individualistic. So even in the family today, the child is sitting in a family gathering, everyone with their gadgets, both parents and children. So it's a whole lot of difference. There's a lot that children don't know today that we knew then in terms of social relationships. So it's a whole lot of difference.
Speaking of differences, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges faced by children in the world?
Neglect, neglect. The economy hasn't helped because when I have both parents having to work, those days we had a situation where in most cases you have at least one of the parents, most likely the mother, um, being at home to guide the children, to help the children. And even where both parents worked, they still had um, the liberty to use their post work hours to attend to family needs, to attend to their children, and all of that. But today, because it's difficult to make ends meet, people have multiple jobs, multiple streams of income. So time is therefore limited. People work for longer hours, trying to make ends meet. So a lot of children are neglected. The basics, the family is the first level of education for the child, not the school. But when we have parents that are absent, then that level of education is missing in the life of the child. And it tells later on when the child goes out there. A lot of parents now uh, have no option but to hire other hands to help as caregivers. And sometimes those caregivers do not have the right qualification in terms of their own personal development to be able to pass on useful guidance to the children. So I think the greatest problem we have now is the problem of neglect. A lot of children are neglected to their.
It's hard to talk about development of children now without talking about caregivers, as you mentioned. In many cases, while parents are away, working, for what are seemingly plausible reasons they're away, they have caregivers who attend to the needs of the children. Um, what roles specifically the parents and or caregivers play in the emotional and psychological development of children? Why is this very key?
It's very key because as humans, generally speaking, now we are cognitive beings, we are spiritual beings, we're emotional beings, and then we are physical beings. So when you talk about the development of the child, you're talking about mental development, the cognition. You're talking about spiritual development. You're talking about emotional development. And then you're talking about physical development. A lot of the cases, caregivers only assist with physical development, taking care of the physical needs of the child. A lot of the caregivers do not have the maturity required to provide for the cognitive development. They themselves do not have a lot of them, I should say, do not have the level of cognitive competence to be able to aid children and develop their cognitive competence. A few cases where professional service providers provide caregivers who have been trained, then that can be. But if it's our traditional practice of going back to the village to look for one child who has nothing to do and bring over to help you in the city, and so that child does not have the capacity to help the cognitive development of the child you have put in his or her care. That person may not also have the competence to help the emotional development of the child because sometimes those you even bring are those who have emotional instability because of their condition. Because many people go into this caregiving because of their own condition. sometimes the condition of their parents. So they send out their children to go and work for others so that they can earn, a living. So the emotional stability of some of those caregivers then is in question. So they cannot therefore provide for the emotional needs of the children. We've seen online a lot of abuses, emotional abuses coming from caregivers. Okay, so again, some may not also have the competence to provide spiritual guidance for the children. So you see, the development of the child, therefore, is just standing on one pillar, which is physical development. And that's a problem for the child. That's a problem for the child. So even for parents, raising children, parents need to factor in all of these aspects of the child's development if you want to really meet the needs of the child.
Families, parents, especially, they're in charge in families, need to be able to provide a safe and nurture environment for the child. How are they able to do it? How exactly do you do that? Especially in challenging situations. So you described a while ago when I asked you about what a child truly needs, talked about the educational needs, how you need to identify child specific needs. If the child is tending towards athletics or music or other forms of art, and the kind of education you provide for that child, expose that child to should be able to cater to the needs of that child in terms of what the natural giftings or affinities might be. But that would also require, I suppose, some level of financial stability or freedom, if you will, to be able to do some of those things and provide some of these things that a child might truly need. So, how then are parents able to, especially in challenging circumstances, provide a nurturing, safe environment for the child?
Okay, so there is always an affordable care that every parent can provide for their children. Sometimes we think that we must have a certain amount of money to be able to provide care. Um, in my experience, I think that sometimes we even go on an ego trip as parents when you struggle to have some level of financial capacity just because you want your child to attend the school that the Minister of the Federal Republic's child is attending or the governor's child is attending. It's an ego trip. There is education that you can provide for that child at at the level you can afford that can be as good as what you're looking for elsewhere. I know that we have a challenge with the number of our public schools. There's no doubt about that. What public schools used to be um, in those days is no longer the same. Yet we still have children who have gone through public schools. All we need is to pay the right attention as parents. And if we play our part, children will go through public schools and still come out great. So there is a level of affordable care that every parent can afford. What constitutes a meal is different for the wealthy and for the average and for the poor. Yet you could provide what the child needs that is affordable for healthy growth. You don't need too much of resources to be able to provide for the emotional stability of the child. So there is a lot that you do without money in bringing up the child, in training the child, in providing for the child. Providing a safe environment is primarily a function of paying enough attention. So someone can be wealthy and can afford all the security gadgets, yet is not providing for the safety of the child. We're talking about emotional safety. We're talking about spiritual safety. We're talking about cognitive safety. And then we're talking about physical safety. So money may provide for physical safety, and the child is drained emotionally. So, more than what you can provide in terms of your resources, being there and paying attention is the surest path to providing a safe environment for the child. We must provide an atmosphere where a child can speak to you freely. That's the first line of safety every child needs. Once that child does not have the avenue to speak to you freely, that child is not safe. Because even when the child is going through some experiences, there will be no one to share with. So providing safety is largely a function of paying attention to the children around us.
Speaking of attention and emotional safety, what signs should adults in the room look out for when the child's emotional needs, or to identify when the child's emotional needs are not being met?
So a child that is out and out, who likes playing, who is just out there all the time, all of a sudden begins to isolate himself. The parent should pay attention to that. The parent should pay attention to a child who likes to eat and then all of a sudden is not willing to join the family for meals. Parents should pay attention to that. So when there is an unanticipated, unexpected, and unlikely kind of mood swing, a parent should not take it lightly, particularly if that swing persists. A parent should interrogate to know what exactly is happening with the child. Again, some level of physical examination would also help, particularly because we're talking about children now. From time to time, and that's the challenge. A girl child, you leave the child for a caregiver to beat the child. You're too busy as a mother to beat your own child. No, you will not find certain things happening to that child physically if you don't do that, because that gives you the opportunity for physical examination of the child. So we need to, I keep saying that we need to pay serious attention to our children, and being available to do that will really help. Really help.
We have to go for a break shortly, but before that, I took a note of this when you said it about when we're talking about emotional safety. The child should feel free to express themselves, and the child who's not able to may not, be said to be emotionally safe. But I know that traditionally, or maybe it's no longer tradition, because tradition is dynamic, it evolves. But back in the day, I would say, it was not unusual for children to not speak openly to adults, let alone their parents for that matter. And that was standard, that was considered the norm. In fact, speaking freely, so to speak, in quotes now, to be considered being garrulous or rude or overreaching as a child. The parents get it wrong at that time when that was the norm.
No, they didn't. Definition of emotional safety then and now will not be the same. Now we're in a society where children can express themselves, and they do express themselves quite a lot. So all of a sudden, that child who expresses himself no longer expresses himself. That's where the red flag is obvious. However, in the society where talking to adults was an abomination, so then, sometimes fathers would return from work, and once we hear the blare of their horns, we're all running to, go and hide somewhere. Um, Emotional safety will not be defined in that society as emotional safety will be defined in today's society. Even in that society that we talk about, the mother was the mother usually will give the listening ear to the child. The mother would give the listening ear to the child. So it was not a situation where children could not talk to either of their parents. Okay. Mostly it will be because we were running a society that was more a patriarchal society where the male dominance, was the mainstay. So, but the mother would always provide the listening ear to the child at that time. And because children lived in communities, it was also difficult for children to share with themselves, their older siblings, and amongst themselves what was happening to them. Okay. But now that children are more isolated from communal life and are more into individualistic life, even siblings, I tell you, even siblings hardly have a healthy conversation for 30 minutes. Siblings, But then we will all go sit before the television, watch one drama series, watch one story, and then we spend hours discussing it. But that's no longer the case. So there were avenues for children to actually air themselves, and people could easily pick what the issues were then. But the situation is quite different now. So we just have to pay more attention.
It is time for us to Niger-Delta Roundtable in commemoration of Children's Day. We're discussing what children need. We're going to break. We'll return. My guest, Dr. Asawo, will still be here. Do please stay with us.
In the heart of our journey, where the sun touches the earth and the wind whispers through the trees, a new chapter unfolds. A chapter where energy illuminates more than just bulbs. It lights up minds. A chapter of unity, a coming together with a common goal to energize futures and illuminating lives. In classrooms, young dreams evolve, inspired by the promise of a brighter tomorrow fueled by available energy. Small businesses flourish, becoming seeds of prosperity. Energy that empowers and is catalyst for growth and change. The future is energy. So, let's light up the path to a sustainable future together. Energy for you, me, and the world at large. Energy for people and planet. We are Renaissance.
Welcome back. Still Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable, brought to you by Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited. I'm Dan. In commemoration of Children's Day, discussing what children need. Very critical. Our guest is Dr. Soye Asawo. Dr. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as well. Early childhood is very key. The beginning, the foundation type it. Um, will go a long way in determining the outcomes as well. How the child turns out, just about every facet of their lives. Now, at the early stages, what do you suppose might be the most important thing that a child should learn in the early formative period?
Now, psychologists will tell us that the personality of a child is anchored on two pillars: nature and nurture. And research has shown that upwards of 60% is a function of nurture, while 40% is a function of nature. By nature, we mean the transference of genes from parents to children. So a child looks like a parent. It's nature. But the child's development, the personality of the child doesn't rest only on nature, on nurture. And when we talk about nurture, we're talking about the environment, the impact of the environment on the development of the child, the exposures that the child receives, the education that the child receives, the child rearing practices that the child is put through. So, in that context, what the child needs early in life is the right environment. The environment includes the physical environment for the physical well being of the child. And that's why we need to pay attention to the sanitation of our environment, no matter where we live, whether we live in the slums or we live in the highbrow areas of the city. We need to pay more attention to the sanitation of our environment because it's part of the environment that the children live in. The biological systems are still very tender for children, and they could very easily contract all kinds of diseases when we do not pay attention to the environment. Again, the emotional state of the environment where parents are toxic in their communication, that's not providing the right environment for the child. Will parents have issues? Yes, couples will always have issues, but you do not play out those issues in a way that it becomes detrimental to the children. You need to be careful what you say to your spouse in the presence of your children, how you handle your differences in the presence of your children, because they are like slates, and every time you write on them, it stays with them. The pictures they capture from the family stays with them, and it forms them. So, parents need to provide healthier environments, uh, lively environments, environments that portend the good of the children. So it comes by deliberate action of parents. It's not something that happens by chance. Parents must deliberately construct the environment where the children will grow to become what they need to be. So what children need the most at that tender age is a conducive environment, and parents can help build a conducive environment. Like I said, anyway, the family is the first line of education that the child. There's a lot that will not be taught the child in the four walls of the classroom. A lot. Social skills are hardly taught in the four walls of the classroom. They are learnt at home. Courtesy is learnt at home. There's a lot that, the child needs to be put through at home. And if it's missing, you don't expect the school to do much.
Speaking of school, our next question is this one. And you must have experienced this, I'm sure, your experience of teaching children. Parents and guardians inclusive have a lot of expectations of schools. You have scenarios not uncommon where a child misbehaves, not necessarily academically, and then the parent or guardian storms to school and is creating a scene, insisting that I pay a lot of money for my child to be behaving like this. So, are parents or guardians right to expect that much of schools beyond academic performance? And also, what do schools have any rules there beyond the academics to ensure the proper growth of a child? And how can they do this? If they do
Yes, let me start with the second part of the question. Schools do have a role to play, and that's why parents take children to school in any case, because if they don't have any role to play there, they'll be useless. They do have about them. But coming to the first part of the question, sometimes the expectations of parents are um, overreaching. What you fail to do at home, don't transmit to the school to do for you. Children begin their education at home. Literacy, numeracy, and other skills required all begin at home. So you have a child and you are not able to get the child to speak at home, and you think that the school will help the child to speak uh, in the school, it's difficult. Whatever the school does, you must complement at home. So it's a partnership. The school has a role to play, parents have a role to play. You don't teach your children discipline and you expect that the school will teach them discipline. You are working in error. So personalized training happens more at home. What happens in the school is general training. In a class, a teacher has to contend with 20, 30, in overcrowded schools, 50 and more. That personalized training is absent, except in a few cases where a child is highlighted for some traits demonstrated by the child and special attention is paid to the child, or for some deficiencies, special attention is paid. You will find that the teacher just goes ahead to present the lectures and attends to issues when they arise. Personalized training happens at home because at the level of the home, you have a kid or two kids or three kids. For a large family, maybe up to 10 kids. It's still manageable. It's still possible for you to pay attention to their individuality, which doesn't happen often when they get out there. They are mixed in the crowd. They are lost in the crowd. So parents have the bigger role to play, particularly at the early stage of the child's development. Parents have 80% of the role to play. As the child grows up and advances through the educational system, then the level of parents' involvement begin to reduce because the child will be out most of the time. From the time the child gets into the boarding house, you only will see the child during holidays. At the time the child gets to campus, you only see the child. So at that time, your influence is very minimal. But the foundation is what will keep the child going in those later years. So parents must build a foundation. They must build a foundation. Others can only build on the foundation. So the substructure is for the parents. The superstructure, schools will help you build.
Let me add this before we move on quickly though. The community or communities, back in the day, expressions such as uh, everyone raises a child, everyone brings up a child. The job of bringing up a child was the responsibility of the entire community. So your parents alone did not raise you. If you misbehaved in the next street, you will be trained and brought up the way your parents, so whatever level of discipline would have admitted to you at home, some other person in the next street or even 3 blocks down would meet up the same responsibility. And your parents would even go to thank that person the next day and say, thank you very much for what you did, you know. Um, However, like you mentioned a while ago, ours is now becoming somewhat individualistic. That communal nature is, some might even say, fast eroding. The community still play a role. Do they still have a role to play now in bringing up a child?
I've seen parents who would go to warn a neighbor for attempting to correct a child. So We see parents indulging children a lot now by their actions. And the worst thing you can do for a child is to indulge a child. Once you provide protection for the child against discipline, you have set up that child for a terrible life. So we must once again begin to think in the direction of opening up a bit more to community involvement in the upbringing of our children. Yes, things have changed significantly. Nonetheless, we cannot run a society where a neighbor cannot help correct your child, where a teacher in the classroom cannot help correct your child, where an elderly person cannot speak to your child and you feel comfortable about it. We need to get back to that point in our social communal life, because what is happening to our children today is once they find that their parents give them that cover, then they take advantage of that cover to misbehave wherever they find themselves, because in any case, my parents will stand for me. We need to let our children know when they are wrong. We need to let our children know that when they do the wrong, we will not stand with them. We love them, but we will not stand with them in doing the wrong. And once children know that, they are their formative stage, and whatever you plant is what you receive. I visited a family friend yesterday, and we were in the garden, because parenting is about nurturing. So we were looking at the plants, and we saw the plants that didn't do quite well, and it was explaining to me that the soil wasn't good enough. That's what happens when parents don't provide the grounds for discipline. Those children will be raised on grounds that are very, very dangerous.
Bullying in digital age. That's a very important question. No doubt there are lots of negative, harmful practices on social media platforms. There's so many of them these days about online activities. How can we protect children from these negative effects, social media and other online activities?
Yeah, we had only physical communities then. Now we have virtual communities. The way to protect your child in the virtual community is to participate in the virtual community. When you are in the virtual community, you are able to monitor what they do in the virtual community. If you are bored the virtual community and you stay away from it, you will not be able to monitor what your child is doing. So if your child is on Facebook, be the friend to your child on Facebook. Staying away from it is dangerous for the upbringing of your children. We know that we have a lot of benefit from the advancement in technology, a lot of benefits. However, we also have a lot of dangers inherent in the use of technology. One thing that we lose in technology is social interaction, social networking, that is physical, that allows people to bond and allows people to grow together. Now, what happens is that people project a false life. Everyone is projecting a life that shows the best of that person on the social media. Okay, and that makes children have expectations that are unrealistic because they want to be like the other person. Okay, so children then have a lot of unrealistic expectations, and that puts a lot of pressure on them. And they want to cut corners to be able to meet up. So parents have to be involved in the virtual community. That's the surest way of helping children. Then you will know sites that are dangerous and you can speak to your children against those sites. Then you will know you will get cues of what would constitute danger to the well-being of the child if you are there yourself. So parents should get involved in the virtual space. They'll be able to help their children better.
Beyond parents, beyond schools, beyond teachers, the rest of us, what responsibilities do we have, if any, to ensure the all-round development of children in our space?
Everyone has a role to play. Today the media space, particularly the electronic media, the dynamics of the electronic media has changed. We have a lot of calling programs now, so people engage more on the electronic media. But sometimes the words that callers use is dangerous to the children. You see, our society is becoming more toxic because of the kind of conversations that we have on the media space. We are becoming more violent, again, because of the kinds of conversation that people who ought to know better and do better are demonstrating on the media space. So in that wise, everyone has a role to play. Everyone must protect our children to protect our future. Everyone, religious leaders, traditional rulers, teachers, everyone has a role to play.
This conversation is in commemoration of Children's Day amongst illiterates or illiterates. So if you had one message to all the adults watching, listening to this episode right now, to ensure that we all, we raise children properly, rounded children who are safe, who are secure, who are proud of speaking of our future or even at present, all that message.
Provide a platform for a child to achieve his or her greatest potential. Everyone is involved in providing a platform for a child. We are providing a platform for society. We all wish for our country to move in a different trajectory. We all wish that. We all wish for a better Nigeria. We must harness the potentials of our children to be able to achieve that greater Nigeria. We as adults will need to move in a different direction if we expect a different Nigeria. And the process of raising children is a process of helping the children to achieve the dreams of our future. And if that will happen, then I appeal to everyone, give a child a platform. Give a child a platform. In your school, provide platforms. In your church, in your mosque, provide platforms. At the family level, provide platforms. If you have the means, provide a platform beyond your biological children.
And now to wrap this edition of Canvas Niger-Delta Roundtable, we've discussed what children need to commemoration of Children's Day. Happy Children's Day to all the children who I perceive watching or have listened to this episode as well. To the parents and guardians out there, adults, Godspeed to help you learn at least a thing or two to ensure you can contribute your quota to building well-rounded children in our society. Thanks to my guest, Dr. Soye Asawo. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you, Dayo. Happy Children's Day.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm Dayo Shapin.